There's a neighborhood in Detroit where the grass hasn't been cut in years. Trash piled against a chain-link fence, an overgrown yard so thick you can't see where the sidewalk ends. Nobody's fixing it. The city isn't coming. The neighbors are too old, too sick, or flat broke. That's just how it stays. Until one Saturday morning, a guy pulls up in a truck, safety glasses, a phone on a tripod, a mower that sounds like it means business, no camera crew, no city contract, no plan except to make it look better than he found it. This is Sean Stockman. Most people who walk away from a 22-year career don't do it quietly. There's usually a blow-up, a breakdown, or a bad boss involved. Sean Stockman's exit looked nothing like that, and that almost makes it stranger. For over 2 decades, Sean was planted firmly inside Detroit's corporate world, working and purchasing for large multinational companies in the automotive industry. He traveled, he earned well, he provided for his wife Tessa and their 4 kids. By every normal measure, the man had built a solid life. Nobody on the outside would have looked at Sean Stockman and seen someone on the edge of blowing the whole thing up. But he had another side that never quite fit inside a boardroom. Back in college, Sean had gotten into video editing, wedding films specifically. He had the eye for it, the patience for it. That creative instinct never fully went away. It just got buried under 2 decades of spreadsheets and quarterly reviews and the kind of slow, grinding routine that wears people down without them even realizing it's happening. By his early 40s, Sean was still showing up to work, still doing the job, but something had quietly gone hollow. His own bosses could see it. The guy who used to give everything to that role wasn't giving everything anymore. He didn't know it yet, but the thing that was going to save him was sitting on his phone, a lawn-cutting video he stumbled across after a brutal day at work. His wife Tessa walked out of the bathroom that night and found him on the couch, phone in hand, completely locked in on a video of someone mowing a lawn. She asked him what on earth he was watching. He told her he genuinely didn't know, but whatever it was working. After a long, grinding day in the office, watching someone turn a chaotic, overgrown mess into something clean and ordered was the only thing that had made him feel calm all week. That moment stuck with him. Sean had grown up learning how to work with his hands. His own father had passed away from cancer when Sean was just 10 years old, a loss that hit hard and left a gap that didn't fully close for years. His faith struggled after that. It wasn't until college at Rochester Christian University that something shifted and he found his footing again. His father-in-law stepped into that space too, teaching him the hands-on skills, fixing things, building things, making things work, that Sean would eventually carry into the streets of Detroit. So when the idea hit him to go film himself cleaning up an abandoned preschool near his home that had been sitting neglected for years, it wasn't completely out of nowhere. It was every version of himself at once. The video editor, the guy who liked order, the man who'd been taught that showing up for people was just what you did. He grabbed his phone, set up a tripod, and got to work. The video went up, and overnight it had 13,000 views. Sean wasn't ready for that. He hadn't built a brand around it. He hadn't mapped out a content strategy or optimized a thumbnail. He just filmed himself cleaning up a property that had been left to rot, uploaded it, and went to bed. By morning, strangers from all over were leaving comments telling him to keep going. So he did, but not by quitting his job and betting everything on a YouTube channel. That's not how Sean operates. Instead, he built a schedule so disciplined, it's almost hard to believe he kept it up for nearly a year. Monday through Friday, he was back in the office doing the corporate job, showing up like nothing had changed. Saturday mornings, he'd drive out to some neglected lot in Pontiac or Detroit and spend the entire day working, hauling debris, cutting back years of overgrowth, making something usable out of something forgotten. Sunday, he edited. Monday, the video went live. Every single week, no gaps. His goal wasn't perfection. He said that plainly. Just better. Always just better than what he found. And the people watching responded to that honesty in a way that polished, produced content almost never gets. There was no script, no dramatic music cue telling you how to feel. Just a guy, a mower, and a property that needed someone to care about it. Turns out, a lot of people had been waiting to watch exactly that. To understand why Sean's videos landed the way they did in Detroit specifically, you have to understand what Detroit has been dealing with for a long time. The city shed roughly 1 million people over the second half of the 20th century. Factories closed, neighborhoods emptied out, houses got left behind, and when houses get left behind, so do the yards, the lots, the sidewalks, and eventually the whole feel of a street. An overgrown property isn't just an eyesore. Sean will tell you directly. It makes a neighborhood feel unsafe. It makes kids less likely to play outside. It's the kind of thing that signals to everyone on the block that nobody's watching, nobody cares, and nobody's coming. The people Sean was showing up for weren't lazy. They were elderly, disabled, stretched financially to the point where a lawn service wasn't even a conversation worth having. They were people who'd looked at that yard for years and quietly stopped believing anyone was going to help. Sean's approach was simple and personal. Every time he pulled up to a property, he asked himself the same question. If this were his home, what would he want it to look like? What would he want for his own kids playing out back? That question pushed him past just mowing. He fixed fences, built stairs, hauled out debris that had been sitting there for years. He wasn't solving Detroit. He was just solving this yard on this street for this person. And somehow that was exactly enough. The channel didn't explode because Sean figured out the algorithm. It grew because people couldn't stop watching someone genuinely care about something. There were no jump cuts to dramatic music, no staged reactions, no manufactured tension. Just a man working himself into the ground on a stranger's property, in real time, with a phone propped on a tripod. Viewers who stumbled onto one video found themselves watching 3 more before they'd even realized it. The comments filled up with people saying they'd cried watching a yard get cleaned. That sounds strange until you actually watch one, because what Sean was really filming wasn't lawn care. It was dignity getting restored, one property at a time. The numbers followed. Subscribers climbed past 100,000, then 500,000, then 800,000. Local Detroit news picked up the story. They started calling him Detroit's Mr. Clean. National attention followed that, but not all of it was warm. As the channel grew and Sean started showing up in more neighborhoods unannounced, not everyone understood what he was doing. Clips circulated on TikTok of neighbors calling police on him mid-cleanup, suspicious of a stranger with power equipment working on a property without obvious explanation. Sean didn't make a big deal of it. He kept working. That's the thing about building something real. It doesn't come without friction. And for Sean, the friction was never going to be enough to make him load his equipment back in the truck and drive home. He just wasn't built that way. At some point, the channel became a business. Sean didn't chase that. It followed him. His first major brand deal came through LMNT, the electrolyte company. Exmark equipment and Poncho Outdoors clothing followed. He was deliberate about every single one. If he hadn't already been using the product on a job site, he wasn't putting it in a video. That boundary mattered to him, because the one thing that had built his audience was trust, and he wasn't about to trade it for a sponsorship check that felt off. Estimates put his monthly earnings somewhere between $8,000 and $12,000, his net worth around $500,000. For a guy who spent 22 years in corporate purchasing, the numbers aren't shocking, but the way he got there is, he runs the entire operation himself. Filming, equipment, logistics, editing. One man doing work that would break most people physically in Michigan summers that don't forgive. The physical toll is real. Clips have surfaced of job site accidents, a chainsaw incident that served as a reminder that what Sean does isn't just wholesome YouTube content. It's genuinely dangerous, unglamorous manual labor. Every week. What keeps him going isn't hard to find if you pay attention. Sean is a man of deep Christian faith, something he almost never mentions on camera. He made a deliberate call early on to let the work speak instead of the words. "I want my actions to reflect where my heart is," he said. And people see that. They do. The 1,000,000 subscriber milestone hit, and Sean did something that tells you everything about how he thinks. He didn't celebrate it as his achievement. He said the number belonged to the community, because without the people watching, sharing, and showing up themselves, it was just a man mowing lawns alone. That community turned out to be bigger than Detroit, way bigger. His newsletter fills up regularly with messages from people who watched a video and then went outside and did something, cleaned up a neighbor's yard, picked up trash on their block, knocked on an elderly neighbor's door and asked if they needed help. People from other states, other countries, people who had nothing to do with Detroit geographically, but felt connected to what Sean was putting into the world. That's the part of this story that's hardest to put a number on. The ripple. You can count subscribers, you can estimate revenue, you can tally up how many properties he's transformed, but you can't count the quiet acts that happen because someone sat down after a long day, watched a guy clean up a forgotten yard, and decided to go be useful to somebody. Sean ends every transformation the same way, not with a grand statement or a call to action. Just 4 words. Not perfect, but better. It's how he describes the yards. But if you've followed him for any length of time, you realize he's really talking about something much larger than that. Sean Stockman didn't save Detroit. He'll tell you that himself before you even finish the sentence. But he showed up, consistently, physically, personally, on streets where showing up had stopped meaning anything to most people a long time ago. He traded a 22-year career for a phone, a tripod, and a mower. And somewhere in that trade, he accidentally built something that reminded an entire city and eventually an entire internet that one person deciding to care is never actually a small thing. Detroit didn't change because a man arrived with equipment. It changed because he kept coming back.